Welcome back to Cheeky Mare Stitches. We are starting our 100 Days, 100 Blocks Challenge quilt, the long arming of it. So I've got it on my long arm here, and I did the first motif kind of to tack that down. It looks pretty good. I'm doing it in white on the border, but I'm going to do it in colored thread around the blocks that are the coordinating colors. Let's move this up a little bit so that kind of gets some more light. Now it's a little risky to do colored thread on white background or gray background, but I am very comfortable with the swirl motif, and any quilting that I'm going to do in the blocks, I'm going to be, I'd want the thread color to match a little bit. So like this reddish pink, which is called Blossom, will go in the reddish areas. The orange will go with the orangey areas, and so on and so forth. And because I want the color to match in the blocks, and I don't want to have to start and stop in each of the blocks, I am going to use the swirl chain up here. I'm going to use that swirl chain to move in between the blocks. Okay? So because I'm very comfortable with it, and there's not a whole lot of backtracking, I'm going to risk and practice using a contrasting color on the thread. So I'm going to advance the quilt a little bit so that I can get a little farther down here, because I'm going to want to do some swirling. I don't want the swirls to be in the exact same place every time. So I'm going to advance the quilt just a little bit, and then we'll be back with the camera in its little holder here so we can watch the stitching. Okay, so I have the blossom in my bobbin, or in my spool. I'm using a pre-round bobbin, which are God's gift to quilters. In the bottom, that's a light gray, but it'll be all right. All right, so the plan is that I'm going to do a swirl chain meander to one of the corners of the quilt, of the block that I'm trying to quilt. And then, so this is the first block that I'm going to be quilting. And the question that I'm going to ask myself is, what am I trying to emphasize first? And that will probably be the dots here. And it kind of looks like Wall-E from this angle. So I'll do some like multi-swirls here to make around the dot, kind of tamp down, and then kind of maybe do some loop-de-loop swirls or some wishbones, and then do another pop there. I'll do some geometric. And then in here, I want to do like a feather, because I like that it's matching this dot, but I also want it to be a little redder since I'm in the red part of the quilt. So because my yarn or my thread is reddish, it's like a red, pinky orange, then it will definitely show, and it will emphasize that it's more of a red. Here we go. We're going to risk this very bright thread on a white background. I'm going to draw on my path a little bit. I'm trying to hit here. That's not my best swirl chain, but, you know, we're taking a risk, and I think it looks decent. Once the blue is out of there, it'll be fine. Oh, that is the water soluble, not the air soluble, so I'll have to spray that when we're done. All right, so now I'm in the area where I have more freedom because the thread matches this, so it'll be less noticeable. So I think I'm going to do maybe a dot to dot. Oh, you can see that. Here, I'm going to do a little triangle in here, but I'm going to do the triangle, this leg of the triangle first, then go in here and stitch in the ditch around, and then come in and do my little filler for this fabric first. And I'm just guesstimating the middle, and it's not quite middle, but that's okay. So, all right, so now I'm gonna do some I missed that one, but it'll look all right. Let's stitch in the ditch. And I'm erring on the side of the red fabric. I'm stitching in the ditch here. Okay, so now I'm going to do a feather. And I like to draw my lines, my stem or whatever you call it on, my spine on, so that I know where I'm going. I did that a little wrong. I am going to travel a little bit. And I want to get back to the center point here so that I can start my swirl chain. All right, so I'm in the next block now. Let's see if I can turn this. You can see the block that I'm trying to do. So I ask the same questions. What am I trying to emphasize? And I want to make sure that these squares right here are emphasized. So that means that I need to do more stitching in these. So probably like stitch in the ditch for here, and then maybe do some continuous curve in here, and then, you know, practice practice a motif that I'm having trouble with. I guess I'll do my bump back feathers again in here so that I get a little extra practice since my first one didn't go very well. Okay, so I'm in the place where I want to do more stitching. So, and I wanted to do a continuous curve. I've got this ruler that Angela Walters developed called Elvira. I am not sponsored by Quilting as My Therapy, but I just really like her and her techniques. So this isn't quite the right size. The square here isn't quite the right size for this template, but I have backed it up a little bit so that it will give me at least a little bit of swag. There we go. And I wanted to stitch in the ditch around the prints. I'm going to do that while I'm in here. Okay. I'm setting up my... And if you noticed, I saw that I wasn't quite going to hit the intersection here. So I kind of cheated a little bit and like shifted my ruler. Just because you set a path doesn't necessarily mean you have to do that path. I think I'm going to stitch in the ditch here. And as you can see, I didn't finish all the humps in here. And that's okay because I'm going to do a second swag to knock these down even more. And because it's continuous curve, I can peek in through the corners and be fine. And the nice thing about this ruler is it's got concave as well as convex. Concave as well as convex. So I don't have to move my hand awkwardly. I can just place her in the right area. And then this one right here, it's called Handy Gadgets, and it's called the HQ Multi Clamshells by Handy Quilter, which is the machine that I use. And it has 4 different clamshell sizes. And I'm going to use the 2-inch one. Kind of center it here. There we go. So that extra swag gives this kind of petal shape. All right. Now I'm going to stitch mostly in the ditch here. I'm going to probably leave that one out, and that's okay. I'm not too worried about hitting all the ditches. If you are, that's fine. But I'm trying to get back to this side. So I'm trying to figure out the correct path to try and get there. It might have been to go up this way, or do this and then that. And this is, quilting right now. All right. This is learning to quilt. I am by no means a professional long armer. I would like to be at some point in my life, but right now I just quilt for myself and for friends, and now for YouTube. And I think I will hit this one next, then come back and do that final, and then stitch in the ditch up to where I need to be. Part of the reason I do these videos without like tracing out the exact path first is because I want you to see that the struggle. Well, I could hit this seam, I could hit this seam again and then kind of travel up this way. Or I could hit this seam and hit this seam again and go all the way across. So Angela, when I took her class, she said that going over a seam once is good, twice is okay, and 3 is just crazy. So far, I've only gone over a couple of these seams twice. So I am following her rule, and it's good enough for her, it's good enough for me. All right, we made it. A few frustrations along the way, but that's okay. And now we're going to do our bump back feather. We're going to practice our bump back feather again. Now we're ready for the swirl chain. Dang it. So the one bad thing about the little foot is these clamps. Sometimes they interfere with your ruler foot, and so it caused this little bobble. I'm not going to worry about it. Alright, so as I'm filming the long arming for this 100 Days, 100 Blocks challenge, my channel reached 500 subscribers. As I'm filming this, it is currently 504 people have subscribed to my channel, and I told everyone that when that number hit, I would do a giveaway. I have made this bag right here out of the extra blocks and the oopsies that I made from the 100 Days, 100 Blocks challenge. And it is called a rice bag. And you pull on the strings here. So you pull on the strings there, and it closes up. So please comment in the comment section down below. Don't say giveaway, don't say free, don't say anything, because I'd like it to go to a subscriber. Please comment down below that you would like the bag and maybe what you would put in it. I currently use mine for my English paper piecing projects that I take on the go. And anyway, so thanks so much for subscribing to my channel, and I hope that you continue to like the content I make. Thank you again. Now let's get back to the quilting. All right, so where we left off was I am doing this block here. So what's the first question that I need to ask? What am I trying to highlight? And I am trying to highlight, first of all, I'm trying to make it look a little bit more red. So that means I'm going to want to stitch more in the pink areas because I want that stitching to kind of pop the fact that this is the red side of my quilt. And then in the busier areas, I'll probably practice a design that I'm not quite as comfortable with. I'm pretty bad at, some people call it a fern. Other people call it like splines, where it's a curve line, but not so curvy that it's like wishbones or ribbon candy. Practice my splines. S-curves is also something that they've come up with. And I may, just because red one, this red stripe, I'm going to probably just stitch in the ditch so it kind of pops up to emphasize the red. And then because this is busy enough and it'll look all right. So I'm going to do that currently, and then we'll discuss what we do in the bigger areas over here. So the way that these splines work is you kind of merge, if this is your highway, like you're trying to get off the highway here, you're going to merge off, and then you're trying to get back, you're trying to get this back on the highway. And highways don't come perpendicular usually. In some places they do come off perpendicular. They come off at like an angle. So you're going to merge off this highway and then merge on this highway is how it was explained to me. So that's what I'm going to shoot for and see if I can get my highways to look pretty. And they don't look too bad, if I say so myself. There's a few that were a little, like this one right here was a little too curvy. But because this fabric has a bunch of like wavy lines in it anyway, you can't really tell. So now I'm going to stitch in the ditch. All right. And you can't, if you could see the animals in here, like if they were very prominent or fussy cut, then I would probably do something a little different. But with a long arm, you have to practice doing your designs in different directions because you can't turn the quilt. The machine is what you run. So I'm just going to practice my merging lines again, but this time this is going to be my interstate, and this is the interstate I'm going to try and merge onto. So I'm going to come like curve down and then go back and then curve down and go back. Stitch in the itch. I'm probably stitching the ditch over here. Get that last curve line. All right, so I did curvy up here, so I'll probably do some more dot to dot stitching here, similar to what I did in the first block. I'm just estimating where the center point is. It's about here, so that means I need to be about a 1/4 inch away because the width of my foot is a 1/4 inch. So if my center point's here, I'm going to aim for that little yellow star that you can kind of see there. And see, I'm about a 1/4 inch away from the corner here because I'm trying to go back to the corner. I'll do an echo. I'm not quite in the corner, so I'm going to move up a little bit. And I'm going to do some more serpentine lines because, again, I have trouble with those. And it's good to practice it where it's not going to be seen. And since I did the point here, I could do the same design, but if I wanted people to kind of more look at the swan, I would do the opposite because it's like, ooh, look, an arrow towards the swan. But because the swan isn't really my focal point, I think I'm just going to do it the same way and then stitch in the ditch around. So again, I'm going to try and find my center, which I'm using the point here. And then I'm going to go about a 1/4 inch away. So that's just past this little dot here. Okay, so now I need to get to this block because I have 2 more blocks that I'm going to do in this red color on this row. And then I'm going to advance the quilt so I can keep my red in there and start doing more of the reddish rows below. So I need to, we've been doing the swirl chain, but I don't really want it to look like it's going on top of each of the blocks. So I may travel down a little bit and like start here, go around. Or I may just travel all the way back down. And if I was doing a block or a quilt that wasn't a sampler that had a bunch of the same kind of blocks in it, I would figure out the most efficient path. But because I'm doing a sampler, I'm just trying to get what I want done. And then if I have to go over a seam again, once is good, once is best, twice is okay, 3 times is a little crazy. So okay, so I like that position better. I'll swirl chain kind of. Okay, so I'm looking at this block and I want to know what I'm going to emphasize. And it's kind of half off screen, but this bunny is what I want to emphasize. So I'm going to like maybe come in and do a bevel and not stitch as much in here because I kind of wanted that to be a frame. So I may stitch in the ditch all the way around and then do a bevel into the bunny. And then I'm going to come in and just do like a meander, maybe following the design a little bit, you know, tracing the design, which is a great way to get used to moving your machine, but not having to like make as many decisions. While I'm here, I'm going to do one of the bevels. And I'm just going to go in and come right back out without moving my ruler. And that makes it so that the stitching basically goes in on itself. While I'm here, I'm going to do this bevel. I'm going to do this bevel. I'm going to do this bevel and go in and do my bunny. All right, so I'm just going to trace around in the leaves. No, Bristol. Okay. So if I had multiple batting on here, it would pop up a lot more, but the bunny is emphasized. So now what do I do in here? And because this is still technically my red block, I'm going to try and add some more red in here. And I may go in and do some pebbles around each of the dots to try and make them look a bit more red instead of more orange. I'm not a big fan of how that looked, but once it's, again, this is a sampler quilt. And I'm learning still how to do free motion quilting. So just because I don't necessarily like it, I did learn something. Like, okay, in this particular kind of pattern, in this kind of fabric with this small of a piece, um, these pebbles that's not what I like. So I'm not necessarily going to do it again, but I'm also not going to rip it out because I did learn something. Okay. And now we're going to go over to the dragonfly block with the swirl chain, and I may go underneath this time. Okay. This border is so small that there's really nothing I want to do in it, and I like the fabric, so I'm just going to stitch in the ditch so that it pops up a little bit. And this is a purple block in the red area, but there was no really better place to put it when I laid out all the blocks. So I'm going to add some color, some red in here with my stitching so that it fits better in the red row again. And the way I'm going to do that is by adding some red in here in the light pink areas. And then I'll probably just stitch in the ditch around here to kind of pop those out. Now what to put in those, because this is pretty small. And I'm thinking maybe just an X, because that'll help me stitch in the ditch. It's small enough, and it'll kind of give the pink lines a reddish hue. Let's just go back and see what that's like. And because I'm going this way and I can hit this block down here, I am lining up the points the whole way, not just this middle one. And if I don't quite make it in the middle one, I will wiggle my ruler just a little bit. All right, so again, I'm getting about a 1/4 inch away from the corners here in both of these because I'm going to go straight across. And I'm not quite making it, so I'm going to wiggle. And now, before I close off the shape, I'm going to come in and do some quilting in here. And I may just do some dot to dot to kind of emphasize my dragonfly here. It also kind of fits in with the X theme. Kind of looks like a continuation of the lattice work, which was just a happy accident. So now I'm going to go most of the way around and come out. I'll probably echo back and make the transitions a little bit more robust. So let's do that. And this fabric right here is busy enough that it's okay that I didn't do the bevels in each corner. No one's going to notice it. So I'm going to curve around up here and hook back into the corner that you can't see, and then do some echoing to try and make the transitions look a little bit more robust. All right, I'm going to tie off here and advance the quilt. Okay, so I've advanced the quilt. You can kind of see some of the stitching up here. And I'm now in the corner of one of my previous blocks. And I'm going to echo around to kind of tie it into this big swirl. And then come down and hook into the next block that I want to do. And that'll make it look seamless when you're looking at it. And it will make it look like you didn't have to advance, like you only had a limited throat space. So, all right. Here's where I'm going to start. This is the block I'll be quilting. It's kind of off center, but that's okay. So what am I trying to emphasize? Again, I'm in the red area, so I want to add some stitching where there's red, or where there's less red. So I'm probably going to stitch somewhere in the pink quite a bit. And I think because there are straight lines on the fabric, an echoed of this particular block will emphasize this while giving more red to there. And it's an easy enough design that, you know, because I'll be using my ruler. So it's an easy enough design that it's hard to screw up. But, you know, there's always room for screw ups. So again, I'm going to kind of bevel in because I don't necessarily need to have any more stitching in this small border because I'll stitch around in the ditch when I get in there. I'm going to stitch in the ditch. When I get to the bevel, I probably will. Okay, I'm going to stitch in this stitch, and then I'm going to do some echoing. Okay, so these stripes are 1/4 inch apart, so that means I'm going to line the foot of my already stitched line right next to it. So the ruler will go on the stitch line because currently there's a 1/4 inch away from the stitch line to try and mimic the same size. And, you know, we'll see how that goes. So we're going to travel up a little bit to where the foot is now touching my stitching line right here. And I'm going to put my ruler on the stitching line and stitch. And that's what it looks like. Not too bad. So I'm going to do that again. Stitch, travel in the ditch until my foot hits the previously stitched line. Put my ruler on the stitch line. Not bad. I'm going to travel again. Consistent. Okay, so I've finished the design. Now I'm going to go out somewhere. And I'm going this way. I'm going this way. So I want to be on this side of the block. So, and I didn't stitch in the ditch all the way around the red frame. So I may just go up out of this bevel. Go around. There we go. And this line isn't stitched in the ditch, but that's okay. This quilt is going to have enough stitching that it will be stabilized. So now I'm going to kind of curve up into here and get into this block somehow. All right, now I'm in this block here, and it is pinker than I'd like it to be, so I'm going to add some red in the blue areas, or the teal, light teal areas. And then I'll probably, because this fabric over here is bigger than just leaving it. These fabrics I'll probably just stitch in the ditch and leave them because that's a small enough area, but the patch itself is about the size of my palm, and that's too much area to leave unquilted. So for this particular batting, so your batting, the kind of batting you use will dictate how densely, what's the minimum density you need for your quilts, so, or for your quilting. So because I need to stitch in the ditch here, I may go over and then come back, and then that way that's the only one that's not quite stitched. Okay, now what to put in here? It's going to show quite a bit because it's a reddish thread, a reddish orange thread with on a blue background. And it's also going to look very similar to, this fabric here. So I want to do something different enough. So I think what I'll do is I may do some concentric circles. I'm going to do the big circle first, and then I'm going to do the small circle. So that's a concentric circle. Well, it's not really concentric, but because concentric means the centers are the same, but whatever. So now I'm going to swing up here and do a big circle in this, in the corner here. Probably just going to do an X in here because no one's going to see it, really. I'm going to do those circles again. Oops. That last one didn't go as well, but again, I'm not going to rip things out. I'm learning. And I think I'm going to do some stitching around and go and start on the far edge of the next block. Okay, so this block is just a bunch of stripes, and I want it to look more red, but there's probably not going to be a whole lot I can do with making it look more red because the blocks are so small. So I may just do an easy one and stitch in the ditch on all the seams. But I'll have to be tamped down, make an interesting pattern. Okay, I have gotten to the end of the red row here. I'm going to advance the quilt again. And I've got one more that I'm considering red. So we'll do that one. And then that'll probably be the end of this video. Okay, so I advanced the quilt. I did a little bit of echoing on the background to tie the block into the previous quilting. And now we're going to quilt this block right here. What am I emphasizing? I'm going to try and emphasize the prettiest fabric, which I believe is this. So I'm going to do some light quilting in here because this is a lighter fabric. I'll probably do some denser quilting, maybe practice my matchstick in there. And I'm going to do the same design in all 4 of the blocks. So these can be thought of as like little tiny blocks. So I may, because I'm going to try and find the most efficient path, I may spend some time and trace out where I'm going to get a good idea. I'm going to practice my wishbones in here. So I'm going to try and make them a little bit parallel with the sides here. And I'm not a big fan of wishbones because it's one I struggle with, which is funny because it's a cursive L and I'm good at cursive L's. So matchstick quilting, you're trying to use, like, you're not really driving with the hand, your dominant hand. You're kind of driving with the momentum of the machine and pushing with the ruler. And it's kind of hard to do it on an angle there. Most of the time matchstick quilting is either horizontal or vertical. But I thought I'd try it. And you see that I'm not doing it in the same order in this particular case, and it's good to figure out if maybe matchstick quilting on an angle is easier pushing and pulling. And it's also good to do wishbones a different direction. All right, so those are the red blocks right there. Thank you so much for joining me in this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe, and comment in the comments below if you would like, put the word bag in your comment if you would like the rice bag that I have made with the scraps of this particular quilt. All right, happy stitching. Bye.